and then I'll get going. All right, so the recording is up and going. So I have in front of me, if I can flip the camera, the AFM. So this stands for Atomic Force Microscope, as you likely know from your class. Basically, this whole beautiful container here is to absorb as much vibration in the floor and surrounding environment as possible. Some of those things that can cause vibration is, somebody jumping up and down on the floor. Even though it's a nice cement floor, it might cause a little bit of vibration. And so with something as sensitive as the AFM, you really have to reduce those vibrations where possible. So that's this beautiful, lovely encasing here. And then going a little bit more forward, we have our sample stage. So our sample will go on a slide similar to that. We're going to have a different sample for today. And then this will be the head of the instrument. So within that, we have a camera to kind of help us view and place the tip, and as well as we have different dials that I will go through more later. We also have our displays. Now, you always know something's pretty intense when you get two displays, or at least I think so. Very much needed with this instrument, just as there's so much going on, and we'll see those a little bit more as we go. And then we have this, this basically controls the camera and the light of that camera, and then the desktop. So that's the whole instrument. Basically, with the atomic force microscope, we have a few different sampling techniques that we can do. So it's very, very unique in the way that it has just such a high sensitivity. It uses a little tip. So if we imagine my finger's a little tip, and it can do one of three things, really. It can do tapping mode, which taps, taps, taps. So if I have, I'm going to just flip the camera one more time. Okay. If I have a surface, like my hand, you can see that there's a bunch of different things, the topography of my hand, if you will. And so in tapping mode, it touches all of the points on my hand, and it's able to really accurately measure out every groove, every movement of my hand on a very, very, very fine, small scale. And I also have dragging mode or contact mode. And in this mode, it just pulls the tip across. So it gets every peak and valley from that. The advantages of the tapping mode is really that you're not necessarily damaging your instrument, because you're just oscillating the tip up and down on that, or you're not damaging the sample, sorry, you're oscillating that tip up and down on the sample. But in dragging mode, if you have something very fine, you might actually be wrecking the sample by dragging it across. Tapping mode too, depending on what your oscillation speed and everything going on, maybe you could miss just a teeny little bit of detail in that by tapping. Whereas dragging, you might be able to get it all, but again, you're more likely to wreck your sample and maybe even your tip. And these tips are quite expensive. And then we also have something called non-contact mode. So non-contact mode in difference, as it is, does not contact the surface of the sample. Instead, it basically is measuring the forces that are on that surface of that sample. So, different bonds do different forces. So the van der Waals forces, for example, and it can measure those forces and just kind of touch off on them and get the surface of the material that way. So today, we'll be doing tapping mode. We have a really cool sample prepared. Well, you guys will see it when we find it. I got really excited about it when we tested it out early this week. And we also have a tip. So there's all sorts of different tips that you can select when you're working with AFM. So there's kind of a range of tips. You can have hard, medium, soft. Hard tips, those could be the ones that, if you have like a cement surface and you're really trying to get the cement block, you want a hard tip so it doesn't break. But if you have a really soft surface, like a bacteria, macrophage, you need a really soft, sensitive tip that's not going to dig into those. So those are, today we're going to use kind of a medium tip, if you will, not too soft, so it won't get wrecked too easily on a harder surface, but not so hard that it might wreck the sample or not have as much sensitivity. So the harder tips don't tend to have as much sensitivity. That's partially because when the tip is oscillating up and down, basically, if it's a harder material, it's not able to oscillate maybe as much. If it's soft, it might oscillate a lot. And there's pros and cons to that. As we see when we set up the instrument, too much oscillation can cause some issues, just as well as, you know, not enough oscillation. Too much oscillation, just getting way too much going on. You're getting a lot of noise. So, kind of doing this with Margaret today. She's going to be setting up the tip. So I will show you kind of what she has going on. Yeah. So this is our cantilever holder. Margaret will be setting the tip on this cantilever holder. You're not really in view. If you want to be in view, I could make you fully in view. No, okay. So she's being very careful to place the tip just so. So there's kind of a few different ways that you got to watch out for. You need it to be centered. So I don't know how well you guys can see that. So you want it to be centered there, but also not so close to the metal bit that holds it down and not so far away. So there's a little bit, I'll show you a picture in a second here.
Do you think we can get the cross section? Maybe. So you can see the bit of light through there.
Oh boy. Oh, maybe. I kind of see that. So just trying to angle it just so. So you guys can maybe see that the tip is coming off the cantilever holder, and the cantilever itself is coming up just a little bit. So that's the part that oscillates. You might not be able to see it. Sorry if you can't. We're doing the best. To be honest, if you're here in person, you might not be able to see it either, depending on how good your eyes are.
And the takeaway is you have to have some skill to be able to do this.
Absolutely. So one of my #1 favorite ways to break a tip is when I put it on this cantilever holder, I smash it with my thumb. So I'm going to just do one thing before I get Margaret to move on. I'm going to pull up this. So this is kind of what we were talking in that good position. So you can't, when you tighten it down, you don't want to have it too far back, because then you get this kind of holding it out in place. But this one, you want it to be almost parallel with it. And then, so that's talking about when you tighten it. Yeah, so it's a bit fussy, and you really have to get a good feel for something like this. But as in all things like this, you don't figure it out in a day. It definitely takes a little bit of work. So Margaret's now going to place the cantilever holder and the cantilever in the head, which is, again, another time I like to smash the tip with my thumb. I really just like to hit it over and over again. So this is the head. It's upside down right now, just to make it easy to place the cantilever holder on. And then this is going to be where we have our sample. So those are just magnets that hold the sample slide down. There is different slides and different sample holders that you can get. So if we were to do, really, we can do more liquidy samples with this. That's a big advantage that this has over SEM. SEM, you couldn't do anything with a high level of moisture at all. Versus this one, you can to some degree. You have to be very careful with how you prep your sample and how you place it. But you are able to do a lot more variety of sample this way. So Margaret's just going to put the head on, being very, very careful not to mash the tip with the on the sample, which is another time I like to break the tip, is not paying attention. I smash it down. So she's kind of seeing here that maybe it's not as high up as it needs to be to not wreck the tip. So she's using that front dial there to raise the tip up. So how I want you guys to kind of do this diagram, it doesn't like being in dark, is almost taking it as a view like this. So you're going to want to point at some of the dials as you're going. So this is going to be basically what you're drawing. And Margaret was just touching one dial here. This is the dial that controls that front leg right there. So this dial goes up and down and controls that front leg. Let's see if you guys can kind of see how the tip is placed in with respect to the sample. So when you first put that head down, you want to make sure that you're at least a couple millimeters above the tip. You want to make sure that you're not going to just smash the tip right away on the sample. There's also some legs on the back. So this right here is the right leg. So it's a tripod, 3 legs. Oh, it doesn't like the dark. You got one on the back right and one on the back left. So you can go up and down with those. You want to be very careful while you're going up and down with those though, that you're not putting it out of balance. So we actually have this sight glass here that can kind of go on and tell us, yes, it's centered. No, it's not. So it's actually looking pretty good right now, but we have to lower it quite a bit. So that'll get a little bit out of the way as we go. So Margaret's going to pull open some of the software now. So we have this beautiful summon deflection meter. So largely, we're going to be looking at a few things when we put this tip in place. But first, we're going to do an auto tune. I'm correct?
No, we need to find our laser light.
No, I'm not correct. We're going to find our laser light. This is why Margaret is here. I've used this instrument, but I am by no means an expert. Really just a beginner. So we have a laser light on the back, and we want it to match it up to this, our tip. So there is a few dials you were just touching, and I'm gonna just do real quick to make sure I'm not wrong. I'm wrong. Oh, because that goes off to the right. So to control the camera, Margaret was touching these dials right here. So one's in the x-axis and one's in the y-axis, and that kind of just zooms in. So as I was touching it, moves around so we can see our tip. So that camera is a great advantage of us, so that we can see when our laser lines up with our tip. So Margaret right now using these dials was, so this controls the slide. So one goes, again, the X and Y axis. These dials brings us around. You can kind of see on the screen that she's searching a little bit within the sample to look for a little bit of whatever we can really see. We want to look for something in this, so we're just trying to see some sort of idea of grit or something along those lines. Laser, yep.
Okay. So
the laser, again, is another one of those ones with the dial. I'll show you in a second, which has an X and Y axis. And this, very interestingly, looks like it could be the laser, but it's not. It's a fun reflection of the laser. So you can sometimes get a few of these reflections, which, like this one, which affect our sum. So that's one of the things that we're looking for as we're lining the laser up with a tip. So we want the laser to be proportioned on the tip so that it's kind of covering as much to the front as possible, while also juggling the sum. So in general, a good rule, not always to be followed, is that the sum should be above 6. But you can see that you can actually have more sum the further back on. I'm a little bit bad at my camera skills, sorry. When the light is back further on the tip, we actually get a higher sum. So that's where I was saying that juggling act, we really need to make sure that that laser covers the full tip. So Margaret's just getting that fine tune, getting that sum matched up, while also getting that laser.
That's good.
Perfect. So
you want to show them the dials?
Yeah.
For that, and then it will be the different.
So we have two dials. This dial right here does the X axis, so the dial on the right side. This moves the laser in the X axis. And this dial, oh, I don't like that, sorry, right here, moves it in the Y axis. Did I hit it? So the important thing to know is sometimes you can lose your laser. It can be completely gone. Or say your camera breaks. You think, oh, shoot, I'm not going to be able to line my tip up. You can do a little bit of a game with the sum where you line the tip up, or you can quite honestly take the laser and you can just go in, I can't remember the word for that.
Raster.
What?
Raster pattern?
Raster pattern, is that what that is? You just go up the X and then all the way through the Y, just up a little bit all the way through until eventually you find it. I have had to do this before because I had super misplaced the laser a few times. And honestly, it takes a while, but it is a strategy that's very valid for finding your laser. Okay.
Deflection.
Deflection. Thank you. So there is this deflection. And one of the things we want to make sure is that we zero this out before we start bringing our tip to be engaged. So Margaret's just playing with the deflection dial, which is right on the left-hand side of this. And she's bringing it down until it equals 0. So that's important before we start. We don't want to have we don't want to have anything improperly set also, because I'm blanking there.
It's the yaw of the laser. So, yeah. No, that's all right. You don't need to know.
This thing is very, very complicated, guys. Definitely a reason why I have Margaret, who, wrote her thesis on this here with me to do a good demonstration. So she's lining up the camera, or she's actually bringing the legs down, which is moving our camera view a little bit. And what she's doing is she's trying to get that eyeglass, that sight glass, to be in the center. It doesn't have to be perfectly in the center. The better we can do, the better it is. But you definitely want to be within that second ring in for sure. So it's a little bit of a play until you get that down. And you're still doing your best not to break the tip.
One of the clues is that shadow.
Sorry.
You keep an eye on the shadow of the tip. And of course, the shadow joins the actual tip the closer you get to the real surface.
Yeah, so there's a few things that we'll be looking for as we're getting our tip to engage with the surface. And that shadow is definitely a big one. We want to make sure that not to go so far that shadow completely disappears until we're ready.
Now we can tune.
Now we tune. So we tune before we engage the tip. Basically, we want to make sure we get that oscillation of that tip and understand what it's going to do before we actually hit the surface. So if we're hitting the surface, we're getting that oscillation stopped, but this way we're going to test it before it touches. Oh,
that doesn't look right.
No, it doesn't quite. That looks better. It's centered though. Nope.
Huh.
We're starting out really good. As per usual with any research instrument, you get a few occasional snags and things don't always work as they do when you're planning the lesson or going through.
Normally that blue trace that you see jigging and jagging up like that simply does a step in line with the black heat. I've never seen that before. I'm not really sure what's going on there. It might be that we don't have it seated in the holder properly. So I'm just going to double check that.
So Margaret's just raising up the head again a little bit, that front leg, just to make sure that when we go to place it back on, we're not too close and we don't risk breaking that tip. And she's just going to go check placing that tip in that cantilever holder, the cantilever in the cantilever holder one more time. As anything, your prep work, your starting work, all of that plays major roles as you go through. So you want to make sure you're starting with the best scenario and the best situation possible and the best prep work. It's tilty?
Yeah, it's like this way.
Oh, that could do it. So you can tell Margaret's a pro because she hasn't broken her tip yet.
I've broken my fair share.
So she always places the back two legs in before pushing the front one down. And she's having an eye to make sure that when she lowers it, even though she raised that up again, that she's not going to smash the tip.
Right, so you can see my laser's not in place again. So I have to adjust that.
So we're going to have to move the laser back in and likely fix the deflection again as well. So she's just moving that laser without me getting in the way of her seeing. And we can see that some is moving around as she moves the laser around.
Now I'm doing the deflection. Back to 0.
Now we're good to try again. It looks a little more normal. It's definitely different. So we got something different going on. I think the black line looks like normal, but the blue line is...
The blue line is funky, and you got this little negative thing here.
Interesting.
So let me adjust that one more time because it didn't have a difference. It did make a difference. I see some scratches or dust on that chip too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
From the tweezers?
Probably, yeah.
So one thing interesting enough, guys, is when you're placing that cantilever on the cantilever holder, you're using tweezers, and sometimes when you squeeze that holder, you actually chip it a little bit, and that will affect how your tip reads and how it moves. So we're going to be measuring just a standard sample today.
This one doesn't tune properly, we'll switch to a different tip.
Yeah, so unfortunately, even though these tips are super expensive, just from time to time they come flawed. So when you have companies building or creating things that are so sensitive and so unique, they don't always come as perfect as we would hope. So that's one of these cases where the tip could be flawed, and we might just need to change it before we start again. So it was actually lined up pretty good this time, so it's kind of nice to see. And we're just getting that deflection back down to 0. I'm wrong, you weren't quite doing that. You're still working with the thumb.
Not quite.
I'm jumping the gun.
There we go. Now we're on deflection.
Now we're on deflection.
Tune.
So hopefully that tune works well. You know, if there's anything I hope you guys take away from these labs, it is that things can go wrong and you just have to work through them and figure out the process. So this looks different again.
That's much better. I mean,
Yeah.
this normally would stay flat, but I think I can work with this.
Okay, so what we're looking is that peak right there isn't exactly centered. And this should be a little bit more flatter going across, but for now it's a little
The fact that this peak isn't centered on the line is a reflection of a setting here in the tune where I've put in a value of -5. That means that I'm working in non-contact. So I'm -5% of some measure away from the actual surface. If I was in contact, tapping contact, then that number would be at 0.
So you can also tune the tip when you're in contact as well with the surface.
All right, so now I want to go back close to contact.
So she's working on getting that shadow close again. This is one of those times where like I said before, I do get a little close to breaking the tip. I don't usually in this setting, it's usually my thumb. That's my favorite way to break the tip. But if you go too close, you can definitely break it. And yeah, you can see with this camera, we can already see a bit of the surface of our sample. So Margaret's just lining that up so that we're going to get to see, you know, some portion that's exciting to see. So we can see that different lines in there. We want that tip to be able to measure that. So we're clicking engage, and that's going to bring the tip down. So it's not going to be touching the sample yet because we haven't got the tip all the way down, but it's now the tip is in a lower position. So this is where it gets, you know, really hairy.
And it's vibrating now.
Yes, and it's vibrating now. Thank you.
So,
so she's going to be lowering the dial, and she's listening for a sound. So this instrument's keen enough to tell you, makes this boom sound and lets you know that you've come in contact. She's also
watch the amplitude drop as I'm coming closer.
Oh, there we're in contact. So she was watching that amplitude drop as we were coming in closer, and now that we're in contact, we were able to take this Z voltage, which was over 150 before, and now we've brought that voltage down to about 70, which is right in the middle of where it should be. So she's withdrawing the tip, and she's withdrawing it because when she closes this door, it creates vibrations. And if you have the tip engaged, you will, drum roll, break your tip. So I find the best way to, you know, go wrong on this instrument is to smash the tip.
So now we're ready.
Yeah, so we're going to start doing a scan. So we have a few different screens that we can take a look at. There's a height retrace, an amplitude retrace, a phase retrace, and a Z sensor retrace. So we'll take a couple of seconds to see what each one of them are looking at. But we're looking for a few things on these graphs. I'm sorry, I'm not centered there. So we will wait until we see a little bit better so I can actually tell you what's going to be happening. Are we just not in enough yet?
Yeah.
So, okay. So we're looking for this line. Basically, we want this right here to be almost just slightly following behind the other one or right over top of it. And then this one. Oh.
Oh my gosh.
What did you? Sorry, I haven't ever seen that before, so that's exciting.
What you do not want to do.
Yeah, that's not so great. So I find this one you want it to be kind of a reflection of each other. So when one of these is up, the other one's down. So we're doing okay on this, not perfect. And this one's getting a little bit better where we're doing okay on this, but still, again, not perfect. And Margaret's just playing around with the gain right now. So that gain really affects the tip and basically the oscillation of it. So if you have a higher gain, it's holding the tip down. Am I going to do this backwards?
No, that's right.
Okay, it's holding the tip tighter and causing it to oscillate less. And the lower the gain, the more it will oscillate. So we can already see a little bit of our sample, albeit we can definitely play around with these parameters to get this into some better resolution. But I hope you guys enjoy what you see, because this made me chuckle. I am a big nerd, and seeing smiley faces in something I can't see with my eye, meaning they had to laser etch these smiley faces in, is just so cool to me. So Margaret's just kind of basically not playing with the parameters. She definitely has some educated trials that she's doing with them. But yeah, in some ways she's just manipulating them to try to get these better readings. So kind of see what's going on with each of these. And I'm in Margaret's way, so it's making her take probably a little bit longer than if I wasn't reaching across her view. Yeah, she's just clicking the gain up right now.
And what I don't want to see is, if you look at the amplitude retrace, you can see when things went wrong at the beginning, that noise-like look to it. The white noise look to it. I want to get rid of that. I want it to be nice and smooth looking.
And actually,
you can see it here too. And then these two lines should be tracing out the same path. They can be displaced as they are now, but you should see the same pattern on both the red and green line, red and blue line.
Oh,
yeah, I've decided this is a puppy.
That's not a puppy. That's a space invader, I swear.
This is the space invader.
There's a couple types of space invaders. We can have both. How do you see a puppy?
Well, it's got 4 legs, and that's like puppy ears.
Okay. Oh gosh, sorry, I'm shaking the phone with my laughter. So there's also a really, really cool imaging. So this is like a topographical map that you might see, in geography, where it's showing these beautiful mountain ranges. Well, this is showing in the nanometer range. So we're really able to see some really cool fine details on this map. Look, you can see where we were having that error that we were having a little bit before.
That was when I misadjusted the gain way too high. And so those are the out of control vibrations of the tip that are artifacts. They appear to be something on the surface, but they're not. They're the tip going crazy.
Yeah, so another, sign of you really need to get your instrument working right in order to make sure that you're seeing what you think you're seeing.
So I'm going to move the, so what we imaged was mostly this area here. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to move that tip so that we get some of these other features. It looks more heavily etched.
Yeah, so before Margaret did that, she did hit withdraw so that the tip was no longer on the surface, because she opened up this again. And she's bringing that tip up a little bit again, just so that when she moves this, if there is a higher portion of the sample, it's not going to hit the tip because we are so close to the surface. So we can see, which is really cool, that we're a lot closer to, some fun shapes. What will it be?
Should we do this here?
Yeah, I feel like that's pretty fun.
Okay. And you can guess from, so you'll be able to see, we didn't show it, I guess, but this position here tells me that this is going to scan this way, downwards. If I want to include this area here, what I don't know necessarily is whether it's sitting at this corner or this corner. I'm going to bring this into contact again.
So we're going to be looking for those things we were looking for before. The amplitude to start going down. That ding when we're getting when we've gone into contact, and for our Z voltage to drop. And I don't know if you guys can tell, but there's also really no shadow anymore because we're directly over the sample. So she withdrew, is closing the lid. And I'm telling you guys, this container, I smacked it on Tuesday, and it is very, very vibration proof. It is really just a feat of ingenuity and designing to make sure that it could be so good. So we're, no, go ahead.
Just showing that you can actually see on the optical camera the motion of the tip. It looks as if the stage is moving, but that's an optical illusion. It's actually the tip that's moving. The camera is moving with it.
And we can see our sample. It's kind of, without changing that setting, Margaret just kind of clicked away the old sample. We can see that was just rewriting over what we were seeing before. I actually think this one's looking quite a bit better. Maybe it's just because there's more to see in this one, so we're seeing those patterns go quite well. And this one's doing, I think, better too. I don't know if there's anything that's different, but it looks better to me too with the basically the opposite peaks going on. So we got some more fun smiley faces. I don't see a puppy yet. Do you see some Space Invaders? I don't know if that makes me old or if you guys know what those are too, I hope. And I just think this is so, so cool to be able to see what's going on for how deep these things are. So we were to have, so Margaret's actually measuring another type of sample for a research project, and it is nanocrystalline cellulose. Didn't want to butcher that word. And it's very, very, well, it's nano, so it's very, very small. And she is basically mixing this stuff, drying it, but she has to be so careful on how she preps it. So if I have my slide again and I prep a big giant clump of sample, well, my tip's not going to be able to get through that. It might break off because the sample's so big at some point. Otherwise, it can only make up for a certain amount of sample height before it just can't anymore. And you're going to get to see weird artifacts from that. And depending on where you engaged the tip in the first place, you might, not see anything on your sample going through. You might have like a blank corner if there's no more sample there, or you might just overwhelm it. I love these guys.
Only Space Invaders, no puppies.
No puppies. Oh. Yeah, I think you're right. So this company, Asylum, is so cool. Their software is funny. There's plenty of Easter eggs in it. So as you're going through, you get to just have a little bit of a chuckle, especially on something like this advanced and this serious. It's quite crazy to see humor and intelligent humor in that in their software. And I know you guys have gone through, AFM and SEM, but there's quite a few reasons why I might select using an AFM over an SEM or vice versa. So AFM, amazing. It can do such small amounts, such finite detail. You can, you're not necessarily destroying your sample depending on what mode you're doing. There's so many different modes to this. If we have a sample with a little bit of a electrical charge or conductivity, we can measure that. We can, if there's, say we have a little bit of, we have really, really basically fine contamination in a sample. So I have a rubber sample and I have just a little bit of contaminants in it. I can maybe see that it didn't mix properly or where those contaminants are into the product. In fact, I have taken weather stripping from cars before, and I've looked for it to see what was going on. Is there different types of plastic? Is there different mixing? I was able to see that it was just an issue with their mixing, as there was very clearly two different looking groups of plastic. Versus the SEM, if I was to throw plastic in there, my detector is so sensitive, it's so strong and powerful that it'll just melt my plastic and make me sad. So it gets rid of my sample and damages it. So Margaret right now is highlighting, if you guys can see, highlighting a portion of our sample. And she's going to go ahead and, well, you can see here their humor. They got zoom, zoom, nice zoom, zoom, or edit zoom, zoom. So we're going to go ahead and hit nice zoom, zoom. And we're just going to, that's going to update these scan sizes here and update what we're looking for. So now we're going in and we're looking at, is it doing it?
You're not yet.
Oh, okay, sorry. It's going to start looking.
Chance to get caught up on your narrative.
It's going to start looking for that smaller range. So we can already see that we're in the 15 micrometers. We're going to go with the units here. We can see our charting, our line right there is very good. And we're going to get to see a little bit more finer detail, which is really cool. So as I was saying before with the SEM, if I put certain samples in there, I'm going to degrade it. I can, SEM has a high potential for contamination because especially the one we have downstairs that does metal analysis. If I degrade something strong enough, I can get some of those metals stuck in my detector, and over time I'll just read the same metals over and over again. The great advantage of SEM though is I can do I can take my sample and I don't have to worry about a tip being played. I can move my sample all around while I'm viewing it. I can do a lot more sample at once. So actually what I do with the SEM is I'll throw 4 or 5 samples in there at once and just go around looking for it. I think in general though, if I'm really worried about sensitivity, I'm going to go with the AFM. If I'm worried about those really fine patterns, I want to go with the AFM. But if I'm just trying to get a quick scan or a quick reading or a quick look at something, SEM is superior in the fact that it's going to be quicker. It's going to be easier to use. It's definitely cheaper. Those tips are costly. It all takes you back a little bit. So we have really cool grit kind of going on here. We can see the little bit of the pattern. So not only is this company cool enough to do little aliens, they're also really, really unique in the fact that they have such good fine patterns within this. So I also really like it that you can change the color of your stuff to like magenta or, burnt sienna.
I forget where that is.
I think you just right click on it. Maybe I'm wrong. There's a way to change the color, but I used to do it all the time, so I should remember, but I haven't touched this in a long time. Is it?
This is going to go full scale.
Whoa.
Nope, that's the video.
That's funny. I thought it was a lot easier than this.
So did I.
All right. Well, sorry to bring that up, guys, because apparently it's harder than we remember. Because I used to just go through and change the color because I genuinely enjoyed it.
It's just nice to look at something other than whatever you've been looking at.
Yeah, gray and.
Yeah, I think I probably closed it without.
Oh.
Something underneath.
Oh.
There we go.
There we go. It wasn't minimized. It was just hiding.
So
we have
what do you
so many things.
New York Christmas.
New York Christmas. This is heinous. I love it.
It's ugly.
It's
Purple haze.
Purple haze is my favorite. Not gonna lie. And it always reminds me of that song.
Prince, isn't it?
Is it? I don't know.
So. Or is that Purple
Or
Rain?
is it Jimi Hendrix? I think it's Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah.
Look at me knowing music trivia.
See, science is fun.
I enjoy it when there's these little Easter eggs and stuff. It makes it, I already get really nerdy and excited for things like this, but it just makes it all that much more
Mud.
cool.
That really looks.
Oh, mud's not bad.
bad.
I like
Not
that
bad.
yellow. Wow. Going with some mud.
So we're at 15 micrometers, and clearly we have some structure lower than that. So we're going to go even lower.
That's another advantage of this, is just being able to like zoom in so small. Like this is just insane, and we're viewing this so clearly as if it was kind of a camera, but it's just this tip reproducing these drawings for us. These graphs, I should say. So there's all sorts of things we could do on this. We could change our scan rate, make it go faster or slower. So an advantage of that is you can see that this is kind of slow. It's taking its time. If we were to be looking for something and we want to know, you know, we're trying to see if we have anything different from what we're looking for, we might do a really quick scan at the largest size we can, just to see what we can see. And then there is our scan size here, which we're down to 5. So we can set that on this. So we didn't need to zoom in the way we were doing. We could just set it initially. And there's the X and Y offset. That kind of just controls where you're starting. Not too big of a deal there.
Placement of the tip.
And oh, our base name is Fun Grid. Oh, it is. It's the Fun Grid.
Yeah.
It's called Fun Grid.
I chose that.
We
I
chose
put that
that.
in. Yeah.
So we can take a snapshot of our sample and save it for later. We can do certain analysis with this. So if we saw, for the nanocrystalline cellulose, for example, we can actually see, you know, little pieces of the crystalline cellulose, and we can actually kind of measure how large they are with this.
Yeah. It's fine.
It's nice having the 2 screens, but it's also a little much. Oh, do you have is that?
This one will allow me to pull up separately.
Okay.
Old files.
So Margaret's actually going to pull up one of her nanocrystalline cellulose. Oh, that looks fun. She's done quite a few samples, so just bear with us because it's going to take a minute maybe to find the one I was talking about. I got lucky and saw that really good one first.
I might have it in a totally different folder.
Oh, you got it by date?
Yeah, it does that automatically. Oh, it's actually playing that one.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that is actually the fibers.
So, crazy enough, those fibers are really small, but also we're able to see that scale of them. And there is a way, and I don't know if you're still working on that or not.
I am still working on it, yeah.
Sorry. There's a way to kind of toggle one side of each and get a size of it. And that way you can kind of, you know, report back, here's the size of my crystalline. So how we were doing particle size with the master sizer, now imagine us going even smaller and needing to view something much smaller than what we had. Well, this would be a good way for us to be able to do that. We could see
So there's a fiber sitting right in the middle there. And there's a way that I'm not expert at yet, that I can measure the length, the width, and then from here, the height, which should be this similar to the width. The scale here is different.
Ooh. Oh. Something happened?
No, I caught the edge of one of the, so this is the top of one of the, like the flat parts. So if I open, I didn't take the rest of the date here. So this is, this is the one prior to this one.
Oh.
So I expanded in here, but I obviously caught the edge.
Oh. So there's a few different things that I just magically hoped would go wrong so I could mention them. There is so in this case, what happened is we started in basically a hole. So when we started in that front, it took the tip kind of coming up a little bit to get used to everything else. So it just started much lower. There's also, with something as sensitive as these tips, there can be dust or debris or even a flake of the sample coming off, and it can end up basically creating either a line through the sample or something that you can see as an artifact. And you may think, hey, that's cool, I have this in my sample, when really it's just a piece of dust. So sometimes the dust holds on to the tips for a little while and basically gets pulled across the sample.
I think I have some of those.
Do you?
Not that one.
That's so creepy.
So there's one. You see that line right there? You can see going through there.
To kind of show it on a different. Yeah, so there's a bit of a line.
Sort of there, you can see it right there.
So that's where there was probably a piece of dust, a speck of dirt, something that got caught on that tip and pulled across the sample to give us that little weird artifact. Now, since it's the standard, we know that's not there.
That was my attempt at the fingertip.
Oh, okay.
Fingerprint. Not fingertip. Didn't stick my finger under.
Yeah, this thing is so sensitive that, given the right scenario.
Right there, that is something being dragged across the whole stand.
So right on that bottom there.
And this is dust.
You have tons of a dirty sample, tips just picking up everything. And the way you can kind of tell when it's just dirt is if you kind of spin it across, it's really only one layer thick. So when we look like this, well, not.
See if I can line it up.
Necessarily.
Sort of. Right
well, I have to line up too, so that's dual.
That's true.
So you could see it, and it's just one layer across. So that's how we know it's just an artifact. It's just dust. Also, this is a standard, so I mean, it makes it easier for us to know it's not in the standard itself. So our sample, this far zoomed in.
So our our Y and X scale is at 5 micrometers. I'm going to go even lower.
Ooh. Into
the nanometer range.
So the nice zoom in comparison to the zoom. So the zoom keeps the X and Y how you drew it, but the nice zoom makes it a perfect square for you. There's a few help buttons in this that give you zero help at all, and they kind of just explain why are you looking at this.
Go back to school.
Yeah, anytime I found those help buttons, I feel like, ooh, I'm out of my depth for sure. So 1 micrometer now, just crazy small. Starting to see that come up. The other thing about research is you have to have a certain level of patience. These instruments don't work as fast as you magically want them to.
It's no CSI.
No CSI, never anything like that. I wish that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
But nope, no such luck for us. What do you keep doing with the color? You're just changing kind of the brightness?
The scale.
The scale.
In the full color range. It's the equivalent of this here, right? So if the deepest parts are blue and the highest parts are white, then I can fix it. So that, because right now the one is kind of off the scale at the bottom, that hole. So it just changes the height relationship to the color scale.
Okay. And as per usual, guys, if you're having trouble hearing or understanding anything, please take your mics off, ask a question, let us know. Are you curious about anything? Do you want to know more? Am I a terrible camera person? The answer to that one is probably.
So even at this level, see, even at 1 micrometer, we're seeing features in here that we had no idea were there when we were at 80 microns.
So.
Little flakes.
Yeah, and I don't know if those little waves are really
those aren't real.
Those aren't real?
I think so. Could be. Yeah.
So again, the instruments they must have done to even design this chip are so precise and so specialized, I'm sure. It's just crazy to me how this all works. So there is tons of different types of tips. So I kind of broke it down into hard, medium, and soft before. But there's also a few tips that have 2 heads.
Yeah.
Those ones, maybe we'll ask Margaret because I have no clue what they do. Do you know?
They typically are, you use them sequentially. So it's so that if you bust a tip, you don't have to pull your the whole, we call tip and tip 2 different things, but you still have one there. They will also be cantilevers of different length, so they may have different force constants. So in other words, they're pressing with different forces onto the sample or against the force that you're using. You also need different tips if you're measuring electrical differences, magnetic, or friction differences. You need a different sort of tip.
So you can do friction with this?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And you can do indenting, so you can do mechanical. So what do they call that? The hardness tester. You know, the little point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Essentially
okay. So this thing has even more.
How much bounce there is on it. Yeah. Softness and resiliency.
This thing has even more things than I knew.
You each need a different kind of tip. That wavy stuff actually to me looks real.
Well, it could be an artifact of the laser, right?
It could, yeah. So we can go in even more. So we're down to 1 micrometer, but I told you guys we could go down to nanometer. Now, we don't necessarily have the right tip for that. But let's check it out.
Just to be further slightly nerdy, I just want to point out that the stop has 3 exclamation marks as if you were panicking.
And when you start up the software, it says starting up. Don't do anything silly.
Yeah.
I think it says be patient. And don't do anything
be
silly.
patient for sure, yeah. My number 1 thing I have to remind myself.
All right, now you see the red trace has that wobble and the blue doesn't. So that's not real. My full range is now 250 nanometers.
Dang. Yeah, this thing is so sensitive. It can see the, I'm gonna butcher this word, the flagella, the tail of macrophages and macrophages, the bacteria. It's insane. I have a cheat sheet beside me. It's my manual. It is an amazing manual, but if I go through it, I can find a very cool picture for you guys. You can tell I've gone through this too much because I've broken it. Where it's actually measuring, it's Pseudomonas argentea. We're going to pretend I read that perfectly. And you can see that detail in that tail. And that's just incredible to me that this can be used for something like that. So theoretically, you can look for contaminants in your biosamples. You can see, oh, hey, we're always getting something in our sample. What is this? Oh, it's this bacteria. And then you're probably not going to be able to identify it from it, but you might be able to get a good idea of something else is in it, or, you know, how it looks.
So I adjusted the gain to get rid of that wobble that we saw on the red trace. So now we're getting a much smoother picture. Clear the old picture.
Yeah, so clearing the old image kind of makes it easier.
See that mirror imaging on the amplitude a lot more clearly now.
We have tons of time blowing through this. I'm a bit fast talker.
A lot easier with two people.
It is so much easier with two people. This may have been, you know, the easiest lab yet. You're covering any of the holes I made.
Always better with more people.
Oh, yeah. So again, as we get that so much more sensitive, it just takes a little bit longer. We have to really make sure that that scan rate's low enough that we're going to get the fine details. Better resolution. Typically, when you need better resolution, there's a trade-off with time.
Very true. And sample prep and who knows what else.
So when Margaret was placing the cantilever and the cantilever holder, she was basically just holding up to the window and doing it by eyeball. I find I cannot do that. I'm not that good at it yet. So I actually take it to one of our microscopes and do it under that, because that's the only way I can see that it's lining up properly and see things. There was a magnifying glass that came with it with a light, but that thing's garbage.
It's horrible. It's useless.
It's basically like, oh, you should just be able to see this.
It's a toy. Where did it go?
Oh, someone probably took it for something else that it was more useful for.
Yeah, it used to be in the drawer. Oh, there it is.
So imagine seeing something so tiny and you're using this.
It has a light.
It's just the light word. Oh, yeah, it does.
Yeah, but it points somewhere.
Oh yeah, it's not useful.
Oh, there we go.
So if you're that far away. So yeah, it's either by eye or, you know, you need a secondary instrument to view that thing to just make sure. Because as you could see from the start of the lesson, that tip, that cantilever, as you're placing that in, that makes a difference. That's neat over there. You can see that bit of basically, I would say that's left over from the laser, that little bit of bubbling almost. Because the laser's burning through it. I would guess laser.
It could be a piece of debris because it looks, see how it looks like it only happened occasionally. We'll see when it, so the default mode is that it will continue to go up and down the sample and collect multiple images until you stop it. So, oh no, it's real. It's there again. It got to the top and now it's going back down the sample to scan another picture. And those little ridges are still there. So they are probably a laser scar, maybe we might want to call it.
I'm happy with laser scar. That makes the most sense.
Now this isn't the right sort of tip. I said in class that you can get down to atoms. This isn't the right sort of tip for me to be able to show you that, or sample, in fact. So I can't go all the way down there, but I can try for a little lower.
Or
do you want to try another sample?
I'm happy to do another sample too, because this is
okay.
Yeah. We're doing really well for time, so we definitely can do more in the demo area.
So then let me change the tip and see if I can get an image of those fibers.
Okay, I'm happy with that.
Okay, all right, so stop with 3 exclamation marks.
That's the panic stop. Did that just automatically withdraw, or you quick withdraw and I didn't pay attention?
It automatically withdraws.
Ah, so the stop withdraws automatically. That makes sense. So raising that up again. And if you guys want, just if somebody needs, let me know and I can give you another view of that head. Maybe not as much engaged I can hold it, especially if we're taking the cantilever off, the cantilever holder and the whole shebang. Here's a view from the bottom.
So I'm putting that in here with the rating. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So we're just putting our standard away. Pulling out a new tip. You're gonna put the old one back.
Yep.
So this bad boy is what this one cost you? $200, $300
for the tip?
For all of them.
For all of them, yeah, it's about $300.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're about $30 a tip. And these are the cheapest ones you can that there are.
Yeah. So imagine me when I first started out. I broke so many tips. And I just kept feeling worse and worse.
Yeah, a lot of researchers say that once you've used a tip, you should not put it back into service. I can't bring myself to do that.
I think they're still good for a little bit.
So anyways. I put it sideways so that I know I've used that one, but I think it's still good. If I've used something and I'm pretty sure or I know for sure it's busted, I still don't throw it away. I don't know why. What? But it sits on the bottom here.
You're like me.
I am.
Hoarders.
You might think it's genetic, but we don't share it. So. All right, so
just scientifically minded people, maybe.
It's the 160. Yeah, you never know.
So is this a harder tip then?
This is a softer tip.
Oh, softer. Okay. Yeah.
I'm struggling.
It's okay. It sometimes feels like it attaches to the tweezers and you can't get it centered.
Or straight.
Or straight.
So I think that's good.
Or far enough out.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't jam it into the bottom or else you're gonna get what they were showing in that picture where
This is actually one of those instruments that has a lot of literature out there and stuff to show you. Like I learned how to put this tip on with diagrams, really, because the first bunch of times I was not doing it right.
I don't see a tip on. Oh, yes, we do. I can see the cantilever. So like Jess said, sometimes you get one out of the box that doesn't even have a tip on it.
It's always disappointing when you get one out of the box without a tip on it. Sample?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Can you see it?
I don't know. I'm not sure if you guys can see that or not. Maybe if I have a darker background. Can I?
So it's this. Yeah, maybe we'll.
Maybe?
I don't know.
Darker seems worse.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, guys. There's little tiny drops on here that you can barely see. And they look a little white, almost cloudy.
Yeah, that solution is a little bit. Am I even on your thing?
I'm trying.
I'm moving it around. So I dropped some of this on it and dried it on the slide, like one drop. And it's extremely dilute.
So she's just trying to pre-position it almost so that the sample is really in the middle, just to save herself some time when she's moving that slide around.
Yeah.
Anything you could do where you can see really easily, it's important to try to do that initially so you don't have to redo.
So there's a huge gap now because that last sample was raised.
Oh, okay. There you go. See? So that last one was basically on a platform versus this one's just the flat slide. So we're going to have to do some work on getting those dials down. So the two back ones have to usually go first.
I'm going to put the camera on. You can see.
Oh. Yeah, no point doing all this work if we don't have the tip.
Yeah.
Oh, she's shiny.
I can actually find my laser right here.
Why is it so shiny?
I think it's just the angle maybe when it's up.
Oh, okay. Sorry, it looks like a glowing beacon right now, so I'm
It's very bright.
Yeah.
It's so bright you can hardly see that
the light is on it.
Yeah.
So the best thing for this is don't lose your laser because it's always nice to
probably just scratch my glasses.
So she's gonna lower the back two dials first, keeping an eye on both the sample and the eyeglass. So the sample to make sure you're not getting too close, and the eyeglass to make sure you're not off. So you can go, one more way further on the right side, and then way further on the left side, and it all totally off. So she's just trying to make sure.
Remember which way's up and which way's down.
Oh yeah, that's the other way I break my tip. I always think I'm going up, but I'm actually going down. That's a fun one. Basically, I can give you guys a really good lesson of what not to do.
Bernstein Bears. We're getting there. I'm going up.
Sorry.
Okay, that is close.
Okay, so we can see the eyeglass is basically perfect. And we're I don't know if I can angle this. We're very, very, very close to touching. Basically, you guys probably won't see that we're not, but you can see right now. And the shadow is there-ish.
Yeah, so we're in the ballpark.
Yeah. Close enough to see the shadow starting to overlap. So again, we're going to look for those things. Oh, no, we're not. We have to tune in other things first.
Yeah.
I'm getting ahead of myself. Trying to align that. That is so hard to see. I've never seen it this bright.
Earlier I turned this off with a fingerprint.
That kind of helps.
Yeah.
So this controls that light that Margaret just turned that down a little bit. And now that tip doesn't look quite as shiny. It's kind of interesting that you can see the detail in the tip on this.
I know. Like there's pock marks on it.
Yeah. Interesting. So she's trying to do that, balancing act between having the the laser on the tip as low as possible. You really want to cover this while also not reducing your sum so much that it's, zero. You could have it so that the laser's just perfectly on the tip, but then your sum is nothing. So she's lowering her deflection now down to 0. Oh, perfect. -0. I love it.
So we have no amplitude, right? Because we haven't tuned this tip. It's a new tip, so do that now.
So we'll see how this goes again.
Ooh. That looks better.
That looks perfect. Oh, I thought it was going to give you that line.
So still this lump here, normally it just is straight, but I'll take it.
Yeah, this looks quite good to me. So good tune.
All right.
We have our amplitude. And now we are watching, listening, and Margaret's feeling it. And, I did not point at her. Sorry. And she's lowering that, the top dial, and we're seeing that amplitude drop. The voltage, Z voltage, we're taking down to about 70. And we heard that beep. Almost looks like how I would imagine Mars to look.
You don't have to imagine anymore.
Beautiful helicopter.
Yeah. Right. So I'm going to go back up in size so that we can actually see the fibers and image the whole, the largest space so that we can then zoom in on something of interest. So we're setting these back to 0, and those are offsets that were created when I zoomed on the last picture. If I left those there, I wouldn't be able to go to the maximum scan size of 90 because it would start somewhere offset from 0, 0 on the XY.
And how's this as a scan rate?
It always defaults to 2 scans per second.
Okay.
1 in each direction.
Okay.
And you change that only if you are looking for extreme precision or you have some really extreme some sort of feedback or more exotic work than what we're doing.
All right.
All right. Here's our last image and the scan. Now you can see these lines here are not lining up, so we have some changes to make with our settings here. The ones that are highlighted in yellow are the ones that are commonly changed in order to get these things looking good.
I always think it's neat that usually you can kind of see directly what your changes are doing to the scan. You really like the 100.
I do. Yeah. Fingers are hitting buttons at once. That offset is generally okay. Don't really like it.
Our reflection one, and again, my arm is in front of Margaret, so you guys can thank me for my shoddy camera work. That is also kind of wonky.
Yeah.
It's not terrible. You're in the very much not terrible range.
Not terrible, but not great.
Yeah.
So drop that gain way down. So I just, by clicking frame up, I started at the top again, because all of this is too full of noise to be useful. I don't want to keep it. I want to see, so that amplitude looks better. So you're getting a mirror image. It's a little bit offset, which can be okay. I prefer it not to be, but I'm not getting any change here.
Well, that looked better. Oh.
It always goes a little bit spazzy when I change it
Ah.
before it catches it again.
The really cool thing about this too is beside each of the settings, they have a little question mark, so it goes and explains it a little bit better. As much as this instrument's crazy sophisticated, with a decent manual, you can kind of figure it out enough to get an image. Maybe not the best image out there, and you definitely have some things to work on. But it's pretty nice when you have programmers like this that are really doing their best to make sure that you can use the instrument. Yeah. Is it maybe just not on something, or you think you are on something? Because sometimes you don't always get the best, right, when you're not on it.
And that's always an option, is to stop it and then reposition it.
Yeah. So one of the things that we were just discussing, and just in case you couldn't hear it because I didn't have my loud voice, was that maybe we just weren't over a portion of the sample that had something really to look at. It was more flat, and that could be a reason why we can't really quite get it to be where it needs to be. Ooh, that looks cool.
Now that is probably a piece of dust from the room.
Oh, that's dust.
Yeah, like a fiber, clothing fiber, or because the kind of fibers I'm looking for in this sample are that speckle that we're seeing in the looks like terrain.
Yeah.
Rocky terrain.
Yeah. So if there's nothing to see, well, you're not going to be able to get.
Oh, see that? See the amplitude is over 1. I need to retune.
Oh. Did that just do it?
I see it. Sometimes I don't know why.
Okay, fair enough. Sorry. Ooh. Even though we say 6 is the best, or 6 is being at 6 is, ideal, it isn't a hard and fast rule. If you're gonna suffer and you're not gonna get your beam properly on your tip, you're gonna have to go for a sum of a little less than 6 just to make sure you're getting what you need. So, just tuning again. Where's that tune data gone? And now we're getting, whoa.
That's why it wasn't. That's why the tune was.
Yeah, that one. Oh, we almost caught the master breaking a tip. It would have been oddly satisfying for me, but really mean.
All right, let's see if we can do better.
One of my first times on this instrument, it took me, I'm going to go ahead and say the full day to get a scan that was any good. And it was on a standard grid pattern.
Yeah, we have a problem here.
Yeah, we got a lot of weird, crazy.
You can see it in the noisy, snowy looking pattern up here. Oh, look at that. All right, so I'm going to start with some standard settings, back to some.
When in doubt, go back to the start. Woo.
Ooh.
I don't know what's going on with this one.
Look at that.
Okay, we're having like
Crazy.
yeah. I don't think I've ever seen this. Fun though. Okay. Is it maybe because of the tune being so close?
It could be.
Yeah.
Because nothing I change is improving that. So that's where you get the 3 exclamation stop.
Yeah, like, ooh, gosh.
It's not working.
Abort. So we're just going to redo that tune at hopefully a better distance away from the sample, the tip away from the sample. And then hopefully we'll get us something a little bit more, well, a little less crazy we'll go. I think if this was my lab, I would be eating popcorn right now.
No different there. Oh, something very strange like that. Is that voltage just drifted?
No, it drifted.
Yeah.
Is the tip broken? Sorry. I was trying to be sneaky.
I thought it looked a little weird when I put it in.
Oh.
So you see how this is, it didn't just jump, it's just sort of oozing up there.
That's not good. I wondered about it too, just based on the camera view of it, because it looked funky.
Yeah, yeah. And static, I've discovered, can do that. Or sometimes I've washed surfaces in methanol, which will wash off all of the normal room humidity deposit.
Oh, okay.
And then as it comes back on, you get that effect.
Interesting.
Yeah, because the moisture, there's normally a layer of moisture on anything you're imaging. It works using it, and if you've removed it, then it's kind of like blind. It's looking for that connection that it doesn't have. And then as it's reabsorbing the moisture, it
so faulty tip then, or you're thinking moisture?
That's where I've seen that Z voltage drift like that, but that can't be what's happening here. We didn't just wash anything or. I'm just gonna switch the tip and see if we can get anything quickly.
Okay.
We're running out of time, but
a little bit, but we had all the. We're doing pretty good. I think we got the important bits.
Yeah, but this is all bonus as it is.
Oh yeah. I don't know if you guys remember trimming the GC and how that seemed to be a bit of a challenge, once in a while. But I hope you appreciate that this is even more challenging, because you always got to get a feel for these things. One of the most important things when you're starting new is just, take your time learning it and really mastering skills like this, because if you can get better prep, better sample preparation, better techniques, maintenance, anything like that, all together, it's just going to improve your results.
And patience is an absolute necessity. You cannot get frustrated by this kind of thing. It's par for the course.
Because you guys don't want to know that I get frustrated all the time and take a 5-minute walk away, go do a different task, and come
I
back.
guess getting frustrated is okay. It's just
Can't give up.
Yeah, and you can't let it can't let it dominate your day or ruin the fun when you finally get the results.
And don't take it home with you. As the master of doing that,
Right.
definitely try not to.
All right.
Well, these tips look the same.
They do.
And they all look a little, I don't know how to call it, like that weird brass polish
Yeah.
from a Moscow Mule Cup.
That is getting a better sum.
So it's better.
One did.
Maybe it was just positioning then, because sometimes it's the positioning. If it's too far up, when you're mounting it, if it's not quite placed properly,
It can be, yeah.
yeah.
This is already looking better.
Oh my God, what am I doing?
It's a gas tank.
Am I okay?
You're okay.
Seatbelted. I'm okay.
It's seatbelted, but it's not sitting level.
No, I don't know who did that. Oh my gosh, it's not even like. Okay. That was me. Whoops.
So I'm a long way.
Oh yeah, you got a big shadow. So the shadow is here. Yeah. Were you?
Oh, yeah, I was.
Okay.
I don't like doing that.
Oh. Oh, are you playing with that at the same time? That scares the heck out of me.
I'm doing the back as well as the front.
So I am too novice to do the back at the same time as the front, that's for sure. This is one of the only times I don't usually break the tip because my thumbs aren't in the way. I don't know what it is, but I really like to just touch it. There we go.
A lot more elegant.
And no drifting so far.
No, it's drifting.
It is drifting. Thought your thumb was still on it, sorry. So what we were saying is that Z voltage is just drifting a little bit. It is funny, the humidity throughout the year has different effects on the instruments.
It does.
I'm not like really scared of this tank.
I'll give this a try. If it doesn't work, we'll call it a day.
Yeah, no worries.
Did I tune it? Yes.
Nope. Yes, you did.
Okay.
I feel decent about that. Sorry.
Been through this so many times now.
It's hard to remember.
Oh, you know what?
What?
It's still on 90 nanometers.
Oh. Well,
That's
that
why it
makes
was
a
so
massive
hard.
difference. Uh-huh.
So I changed it to 90 from 5, I think it was, or 1, but it was still nanometers. I didn't change the unit. Always check the unit.
Happens to the best of us. My favorite is I never change my scale, and so when I look at things, I'm always like, whoa, this looks like there's nothing here. And then you zoom in, and there's tons.
That's looking much better now.
Yay! So we got our overlapping back, and we definitely have our Collecting peaks back. Whew. Still in mud?
It's still in mud. Want a new color?
Yeah, why not?
Blue funk.
Ooh, there's one in here that is absolutely so ugly. Oh, do the cute.
I kind of like that.
I like that one too. I really did go through these colors one day as I was waiting for skins.
That's so what I would do.
Something to play with while you're waiting for everything to, Oh.
You can see the
That looks a lot better over
the,
here.
the fibers over here already.
So this is where you can't get frustrated because it took us a little bit to figure out, the nanometers to micrometers thing, but now, great success.
Oh, I blew it. Oh, no, I didn't.
No, you're okay. Wow. Okay, well, I'm just going to show them this because this looks the best.
It does, doesn't it?
Mm. So we can definitely see fibers in this. It's actually probably pretty cool, but water has a certain amount of salts in it. So some of those little speckles could be maybe even that.
Yeah. Could even be
broken down.
Yeah, bits of dirt with the same sort of things that are in room dust.
Yeah. Dust is a fun one and never helps your analysis.
No.
What is any of this?
This color difference
Yeah.
here. Those are artifacts for these
Okay.
bands. Yeah, that's a.
Oh,
You see them here?
okay. Stuff coming loose as it goes
I
over?
think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is.
And I think it's part of the problem we were seeing, the drifting and the like we're not getting good coverage here, so something's not adjusted well. Like the red and the blue are not completely tracing each other, so it's a little bit unstable, basically.
Okay.
So something's not quite it's not quite happy with the settings I've picked.
You're pretty close.
You still can see what's on that surface. This one looks pretty.
Oh yeah, you get to see like the fibers for sure showing up in that.
And if we let this go back up again, so like I said, its default mode is to go scan down and then scan back up again and collect another picture. Those bands will disappear. It will be more even, in my experience.
Ooh, that's a lot better. I always get way ahead of myself. It changes and it looks better like initially, and then kind of fluctuates a little bit back.
Yeah. And I find to get these bands, these different color things happening from that as well, from changing your gain, your set point, and all the other things I was messing with. If I stop myself from doing that.
Yeah, because I would say you're probably not seeing much of a difference in this. You're seeing a little bit more sensitivity, basically. You can see a little bit more texture.
Yeah.
But versus this one, you're definitely seeing more bands kind of going down. Ooh. That was neat.
hogging the stool.
Oh, no, that's okay. I
It
thought
was
about
too weird.
grabbing another one, but I mean, like in my mind, I was like, oh no, I'll just stay. Well, now we're almost at the end.
We're almost done now.
So I can't give up. I gotta just feel like this was exercise somehow. Oh, we see a little bit of that band again.
It's not for the same spot too.
Yeah.
So it probably picked something up that it's dragging with it for that.
Oh, and I
period.
picked it back up.
Right. Because it's not as wide, and it's too straight an edge.
Ooh, it'd be cool to do hair on this.
Ooh, it would too.
Yeah, you could see all the keratines and stuff like that, kind of flaky.
Yeah.
We have another microscope just while we're waiting for that one to scan, where we did view some hair one day. We had a bit of a slow day, and we got to see a mite on somebody's hair, and that was cool.
Oh, that would be a bit creepy.
It was a little creepy, but it wasn't my hair, so I felt okay. It was kind of cool seeing too. So we tried to get a different color hair. So we had red, black, brown, blonde, and one white hair.
I can give you lots of those.
And it was cool seeing the different thicknesses and textures.
And I got the core is different. Like
oh yeah,
it
it gets thinner as you go too.
Yeah. It can be stuttery, like not always there, like it opens and closes, and then thicker, thinner, oval. The hair shaft itself can be circular or oval. There's another one.
Oh, that one's a lot cooler. That'll be neat here for sure.
Yeah.
I think my favorite hair was the black one because it was so thick. It was insane. It was like twice the thickness of the other ones.
Really?
Yeah. Might have just been that person's hair though.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Any feature that follows exactly the scanning direction, you should be suspicious of. So this is following exactly the X, and so is this. Oh, there, it's starting another scan.
Yeah. It fixed that one thing though.
Yeah.
All right. Any last comments?
Nope.
How about you guys? Any questions? You still awake in there? All right. I will stop. I'm gonna take probably 10 minutes just to get the review set up on my computer and get back into the office. And I'll join back on a video again. Oops, I can flip it. You guys can see me. I'll join back on the video then, and yeah, we'll go through the test review. And if you guys have any questions about this, you can ask me that then too. No problem. All right. Talk to you guys in a couple minutes.